Hey, welcome back everyone to Manny School of Art. I hope that you are having a great summer and that you are well rested and ready to go for the new school year. Um, I've been gone for a little bit. I went to the East Coast, visit family, and then afterwards I went to Colorado to visit more family and just got back not too long ago. Been doing a little catch-up work on my to-do list, but with the new school year getting started, it is ready to get back and get back into the swing of things. So, here we are. Now, a lot of the times when you see me working with the inks, you're going to see me working with a full set of brush like this. I have so many brushes that I've accumulated over the years. This particular set, I didn't even know I have. I was cleaning my studio and I found a brand new set of brushes still in the package, so it wasn't even opened. But it's not necessary if you're getting into inking to have all kinds of different brushes, especially if you're not sure that you know how much money you want to invest in it. So what I've decided to do today is to do a little painting, like the one that you see back here, using nothing but a half-inch brush, synthetic brush, some black India ink, and we're painting it onto 140-pound watercolor paper. That's it. Now we're not going to draw the painting out or anything. We're just going to do it freestyle. Okay. We're just going to use the techniques that I'm going to be showing you at the beginning of the video, and then we're just going to combine them basically to create a little painting. Now the video is not about the quality of the painting. It's more about learning how to take your equipment, in this case a single brush, and learning how to use it and learning how to use it in different ways. All right, let's go ahead and get started on this little painting right here. We're only going to be using a single brush to do this. You're also going to need some black India ink. Make sure that it is a permanent ink, so if you decide that you want to add watercolors on top later, it will not affect the drawing that you've completed. You want to have a container to clean your brushes with, and then a small container with just clean water to wet the paper, and some paper towels. And that's pretty much it. And we're going to be doing this painting on 140-pound cold press watercolor paper. And the brush that we're using is a half-inch synthetic flat brush. And I chose this brush because I want it to have a little bounce back. This is a sumi brush, and I'm going to show you that this one doesn't have bounce back. In order to figure out whether your brush has bounce back, what you want to do is you want to wet it and then bend it. And if it comes back more or less to its original form, that means that it has bounce back. It's bouncing back to its original form. Where if you look at something like a sumi brush, like this one, and you bend it, see how it doesn't come back all the way? So this one doesn't have as much bounce back as this one. Both of them are good brushes. They're just used for different applications. So we're actually going to be using this one here. And I'm using a half-inch, but you can use, you know, 1/4 inch or 3/4 inch or whatever size you have available. Now before we start on the main painting, I'm just going to show you the strokes that you're going to need. And I'm going to do these using mostly pure black ink, but all of these techniques can be done with watercolor, or with ink washes, right? An ink wash is nothing more than adding water to the ink. But for the sake of demo, I'm going to show you what they are so they show up really well. So I've loaded the brush on both sides. You can see how nice and sharp that is right there, right? Now I can use the brush this way, or I can use it this way, or I can press with it. So let's say that you're trying to get some relatively straight lines, okay? Instead of pulling on the brush or pushing on the brush, you can actually use the brush and tap and get some really nice, clean, relatively sharp lines, okay? Now this does take a little getting used to because you have to match them up, but you can get some pretty successful lines just by pressing like that, okay? And these exercises that we're going to be using with this painting are actually good to do with other brushes as well, so that you can kind of get used to what you can and can't do with your brushes, right? Each brush has its own limitations. So just by pressing like that, you can get some relatively straight lines, and it's very, very simple to do. Now, you can also use the corner of your brushes to paint with. You don't always have to use the entire brush. So I'm gonna go over here, load it up, and I'm just going to, here, I'll show you real quick. Try to keep my hand out the way. First, make a straight line, and then using just the corner, I'm going to suggest a little evergreen. And all I'm doing is kind of like touching the corner and pulling. That's all I'm doing. As I come down, I'm just letting it get a little bit wider. And again, these you can do with washes, or you could do it with pure black ink. Very easy to do, okay? If you want to see what that looks like as a wash, clean your brush, grab a little bit of clean water, mix your ink up, and I always like to test the values, because on this porcelain, it always looks dark, but when you put it on the paper and the paper starts absorbing, you can actually see the actual color. So if I want it darker, I would add a little bit more black to that mixture. If I want it lighter, I would add a little bit more water to the mixture. But for right now, I'm gonna do it here. And what I'm doing is I'm loading the brush and taking a little bit of the extra off, especially when you're using water with your ink, because it gets even runnier. So if you wanna have a little bit of control, make sure that your brush is not like dripping wet. So you can see here, same technique, but because I have it mixed with water, it looks much lighter. So this would be good if you're doing something with atmospheric perspective and you need the trees to look like they're further away. You definitely want to make sure that you mix them with water to make them look less defined. The next brush stroke that you want to practice is, I call it a ribbon stroke. So what I like to do with that is I like to load both brushes, or excuse me, I like to load both sides of the brush and get it back so it's nice and flat. Okay? And then you simply start off with however you want. So like if I want a thin area for the ribbon, I'm going to start off with the brush going this way. If I want to start off with a thick area, I would start off with the brush going this way. And then as I do this, I'm just going to twist the brush. Okay. Let's do it again. So you start off thin or thick. Let's do one that would start off thick, like this. And then twist the brush. So what you're getting is you're getting different weights of lines. So here the line is a lightweight, meaning that it's thin, and then here's a thicker weight. Okay? And you have to practice, right? Because if you can go long, press gently, right? So you get a slightly different weight line. So pull, press, twist. So there's a few little things going on all at the same time. So it's something that you got to kind of get used to. So what I've done here is This is where the main paint is going to be, and this is the practice section. It's also where I'm going to test my values. Okay. Now you can double load and do this. Oops. Here, let me get a little bit more black ink first. Put it over here. And double loading simply means that I'm going to load the entire brush with my light value first, and then I'm going to touch one side with the dark. Now, as I do that ribbon technique, I can actually, oops, it didn't quite catch it, but what it does, it typically puts a shadow on one side. I'm not getting enough of the black. So let's try one more time. There we go. Okay. I ran out of space in my practice area, so I got some more scrap paper here. I usually keep some lying around from projects that done in the past, or maybe things that go wrong, and I'd save the paper. So I'm gonna load it up with my light color on one side, dark on the opposite side, and then make sure you know where the dark side is, because that's where the shadow is gonna be. So if I'm doing this, okay, so you can see that it's a little bit darker in this area here and a little bit lighter in this area right here, okay? So light, and then dark. Oops, a little dirty there. And let's try it this way. Try to keep my hand out the way. So, there we go. Okay. You can also do it like this. Get a little bit more black. And then the last technique that we may use, not even sure we're going to use it, it's just a dry brush technique. So what you want to do is you want to load your brush. You want to kind of wipe off some of the extra. And dry brushing doesn't mean that the brush itself is actually dry. It just means that you're skimming the surface. So when I skim the surface, some of the white is going to show up. So you don't want to use a ton of pressure with this. Like I'm barely touching the paper. So the pores of the paper pick up the black ink or the ink, whatever color ink you're using or whatever value of ink you're using. And the pores, I think I said that backwards. Yeah, the pores stay relatively light. And then the dimples pick up the color, the ink. And you can see that as the brush starts to run out of ink, you can actually get some pretty light values. And that's called dry brushing, okay? So those are the basic techniques that we're gonna use to try to create this very simple little painting. So let's get started. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to establish the bamboo that I'm gonna put in the foreground. Normally, I like to do background, middle ground, and then foreground, but in this case, I'm not gonna stick to that. I'm gonna do it in a different way. And the reason for that is because this ink is permanent, cannot be erased. So I wanna make sure that if I put something in the foreground, that I work kind of around it when I start adding the middle ground and the background. So I'm gonna take a little bit of ink, mix it with water here, dry my brush, load both sides really well, and then grab pure black on this little corner here. Yep. And I'm gonna go right one. Now if you start to run out, reload. So I'm not wetting the paper. So now I can always go back and add more of the shadow if I wanted to, but for this one, I'm not going to. This is more about learning how to work with my brushes, learning how to work with this 1/2" flat brush. Let's do another one here. Because the paper is dry, the ink is getting absorbed very quickly. I'm gonna add just a little bit here before that dries, so that it'll blend nicely. There we go. Yeah, let's do one more. Load both sides really well. Dark on the one side, one corner. Just a little bit here and there. All right, there we go. Now I gotta let that dry for a little bit. So while that's drying, I'm gonna start working on this back here. So I'm gonna put like, I don't know, maybe a little waterfall or something. And it's gonna be kind of far away. Oops, I'm gonna go even lighter. So I'm testing my values over here. And I think I wanna start here. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna touch like that first technique that I showed you guys. And all I'm doing that to establish where the horizon line is gonna be. While I'm at it, I'm gonna go ahead and put some faraway trees. So loading up, nice and light. And let's make sure you guys can see this. All right, like right here. Let's put one right here, far away. So touch, do a few of them. I think I want to go lighter. I want them further away. And then just using the corner, just suggest the basic shape. All right. Let's put some here, different sizes. They don't have to be pretty. These are like super far away. So we don't need too many of them. Keep these like super light, right, to indicate distance. Small and light. All right, we said this was going to be a waterfall. So let's establish where that waterfall is going to be. I'm going to kind of do a little bit of a dry brush. So I'm going to start off here. This is where the ground's going to be. And then right about here, let's go ahead and start establishing where that's going to be. Now I can put in like a little bit of protrusion of land here. And kind of just start touching and tapping to suggest that this is more rocky. And actually, if I think about it, I probably should have had more white in the waterfall. But again, this is not about how pretty this painting is going to be. This is more about learning how to work with the equipment. So let's put a little rock here as well. I'm using the corner. I'm just kind of dragging. Now down here, where the waterfall crashes, I think what I want to do here is just kind of like leave a little bit of a white area here and then start suggesting ripples in the water here. So that same little tapping motion that I did up here, I'm using down here. And I'm allowing plenty of that white paper to show through, make it look shiny. Kind of give me a sense of where this is all going. All right, that's enough for now, I think. Let's put a few more stones and rocks on this side also, just to really try to magnify that drop off. I'll do a little bit of dry brushing here as well, because it looks kind of weird with just a single line. So barely skimming the surface, just like so. So these exercises are excellent. Not only do they force you to like get creative with the brush itself, but it's also a great exercise for using different values and mixing your inks. So, all right, so now I got most of that in. It looks okay. So this should be dry enough now. What I want to do is I want to put in some of the bamboo leaves, and I'm going to have some nice variety. So some of them are going to be light, some of them are going to be dark, some of them are going to have a little bit of both. So the bamboos, all of this is hollow on bamboo. The little stalks, this is the only part of the bamboos that are not hollow. So that's where the foliage grows from. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide where I want that foliage to be and start putting it in. Now I think I'm going to go a little bit darker because it's see-through, so it looks funny. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit more of the black to this and repeat the process. There we go. And I want them to overlap into each other. All right. So let's have one coming in this direction, I think. And then making sure that I'm twisting the brush and varying these. Right, so they're not all exactly the same. here they're gonna go right off. So let's have one coming in from up here. We don't see where the thing is, but let's have it up here. I think I want to spin this a little bit. Now, when this happens, okay, that's telling you that the brush is getting too dry. So clean your brush and reshape it. Okay. And then you're good to go again. There are times when we do something like that intentionally where we actually change the shape of the brush, but it has to be, you know, if you're doing it intentionally, that's fine. But if you're like looking to get this effect and you don't notice that and you try to do this, it's gonna make for a very weird looking leaf. So make sure that you kind of look at your brush, and then when you reload the brush, basically it's kind of like sharpening. So like there, you saw that there wasn't enough. I didn't do enough, and it looked like the leaf had broken off, basically. So, which happens, I mean, but all right, so there we have it. Now you can go back, because the ink dries so quickly. If you wanted to, you can actually go back and do some more work on this. But really what I wanted to show you in this video was that you can do some pretty elaborate paintings with minimal equipment like this, like a single brush, some ink, some water, and pretty much that's it. So if you're starting to get into this and you're not sure whether or not you're going to want to invest in it, start off with something small. Start off with a single brush, a little bit of ink, and some watercolor paper, and give it a go. And then if you decide that you want to learn more about it, then you can invest more into different types of brushes and whatnot. Okay. So I hope this helps. Very easy to do. It's just a matter of learning how to use your brush in different ways, and of course, practicing. All right, so until the next video, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.